This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. And today, I want to talk with you about a fear that lives very quietly inside many people. A fear that does not shout. It does not run. It simply sits in your chest and tightens a little every time you open your mouth. Today, I want to talk about being afraid to make mistakes at work. Not in a dramatic way, not in a motivational way, but in a human way. Because maybe right now you are working in an office or a shop or a company, and every day you use English. And every day you think, what if I say the wrong word? What if they laugh? What if they think I am stupid? What if I lose respect? And so, you choose silence. Or you choose very short sentences. Or you speak very fast and hope no one notices your mistakes. If this is you, you are not alone. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I was working in a small international office. It was not a big company, just one floor, about 15 people, different countries, different accents, different levels of English. Every morning, we stood in the kitchen to make coffee. And every morning, there was one man who always arrived early. His name was Daniel. He was not from an English-speaking country. He spoke slowly, very carefully. Every sentence felt like a heavy box he carried with both hands. When he spoke, you could see his eyes moving, searching for words, choosing them one by one. And very often he stopped in the middle of a sentence. He would say, I think we should, we should make more. And then he would smile and say, sorry, my English is bad. Every time. Not once, not sometimes. Every time. One day, after a meeting, we walked together to the elevator. It was quiet. And then he said, very softly, Thomas, can I ask you something? I said, of course. He looked at the floor, and he said, when I speak in meetings, do people think I am not intelligent, not fluent, not professional, not intelligent? This sentence stayed with me for a long time, because this is not really about English. This is about identity. This is about how we see ourselves when we use a second language. When you speak your first language, you are yourself. You are funny. You are thoughtful. You are smart. You are confident. But when you speak English at work, sometimes you feel like a smaller version of yourself. A quieter version. A simpler version. A version that cannot fully explain what is in your mind. And this is painful. Let me say something very clearly. Being less fluent in English does not mean you are less intelligent. Repeat after me. Being less fluent does not mean I am less intelligent. Try saying it slowly. Now again. Good. When you make a mistake in English, you are not showing weakness. You are showing courage. Because every mistake means you tried, you risked, you spoke. Let me return to the story. A few weeks later, there was a team meeting. We were discussing a problem with a project. People were speaking quickly on ideas were moving fast. Daniel was quiet. He was writing notes. Looking up, looking down. And then, suddenly, he raised his hand. The room became quiet. he said. I am not sure my English is good, but I think we have a problem with the schedule. His sentence was not perfect. But his idea was. He explained a small detail that no one else had noticed. A detail that could save us 2 weeks of work. When he finished, the manager said, "That is a very good point, thank you." After the meeting, Daniel came to me. He said, "I made many mistakes." I said, "Yes, and you were also the smartest person in the room today." He looked surprised, because in his mind, mistakes were louder than ideas. Maybe this is also true for you. Maybe when you think about your English, you remember only the mistakes. The wrong verb, the missing article, the strange pronunciation. But you forget something very important. People at work are not listening to your grammar. They are listening to your meaning. They want to know, what do you think? What do you suggest? What do you see that others do not see? Language is a tool, not a test. Let me give you a small phrase. Repeat after me. I'm not sure how to say this, but again, this sentence is very powerful because it does 3 things. First, it gives you time. Second, it shows honesty. Third, it tells the listener, please listen to my idea, not my grammar. Another phrase. Let me try to explain. Again. When you say this, you are not apologizing. You are preparing the listener to be patient. Now, I want you to imagine a moment. You are in a meeting. Your heart is beating a little faster. You have an idea, but you are afraid. You think, what if my sentence is wrong? And so, you stay silent. This moment is very important. Because every time you choose silence, you teach yourself one lesson. My voice is dangerous. But every time you choose to speak, even badly, you teach yourself a different lesson. My voice is allowed here. Language learning is not only about words. It is about permission. Do I allow myself to speak? Do I allow myself to be imperfect? Do I allow myself to be seen? Let me share something personal. Even as a teacher, I make mistakes. Sometimes I forget a word. Sometimes I say the wrong thing. Sometimes I explain badly. And every time, I feel a small shame. But I also feel something else. Relief. Because perfection is very heavy. And mistakes are light. Mistakes tell you, you are moving. When a child learns to walk, they fall. Many times, we do not say, you are bad at walking. We say, you are learning. Why is language different? Let me ask you something gently. When was the last time you made a mistake in English at work? Now, do not think about the mistake. Think about what happened after. Did the world end? Did people stop respecting you? Or did the conversation simply continue? Most of the time, nothing terrible happens. The fear is often bigger than the reality. I want to give you a small exercise. Think of one sentence you often want to say at work, but you are afraid. Maybe, I have a different opinion. Or, I don't agree. Or, can you explain that again? Choose one. Now say it slowly. Again. This sentence is a bridge. It connects your mind to the world. Every time you use it, the bridge becomes stronger. Over time, something very quiet happens. You stop thinking, "My English is bad," and you start thinking, "My English is enough for today." Enough to share one idea, enough to ask one question, enough to take one small risk. And this is how confidence grows. Not in big jumps, in small daily acts of courage. Let me return to Daniel one last time. 6 months later, he spoke more. Not perfectly, but more. He stopped saying, "Sorry, my English is bad." Instead, he started saying, "Let me try to explain." And something changed. Not his grammar, his posture. He sat straighter. He looked at people's eyes. He smiled more. One day he said to me, "I still make many mistakes, but now I think my ideas are more important than my English." I think this sentence is very wise. And maybe today you can take it with you. Say it with me. My ideas are more important than my English. Again, you are not learning English to be perfect. You are learning English to participate, to belong, to share your mind with others. When you speak, even with mistakes, you are saying, "I am here. I have something to offer." And that is enough. Before we finish, I want to leave you with one thought. Every person you admire in English once spoke badly. Every fluent speaker once said wrong sentences. The only difference is they continued, and so will you. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas, and I want to continue this quiet conversation with you. Because even after everything we have said, I know something. The fear does not disappear quickly. You can understand the ideas. You can agree with them. But tomorrow morning, when you walk into your office, when you open your laptop, when you hear English around you, the fear may come back. Softly, in your shoulders, in your stomach, in the small pause before you speak. So let us stay here a little longer. Let us walk more slowly through this feeling. Imagine a simple moment. You are sitting at your desk. Someone comes and asks you a question in English. A simple question. And in your mind, you know the answer. Very clearly. But the words do not come out easily. There is a small delay. 1 second, 2 seconds. And in those 2 seconds, your mind says many things. They are waiting. I am too slow. I sound stupid. I should stop talking. This moment is very important. Because this is where many people give up. Not on English, on themselves. They answer very quickly with something small. Or they say, "I don't know," even when they do know. Not because they are lazy, because they are afraid. Let me tell you something honest. In real work life, silence is often more dangerous than mistakes. When you are silent, people do not know what you think. They do not know what you can do. They do not know what you see. And slowly, without anyone meaning to hurt you, you become invisible. Not because you are not capable, but because you did not let yourself be heard. This is not a language problem. This is a courage problem. And courage is something we can train. Very gently. Very slowly. Let me give you another small phrase. Repeat after me. Give me a moment to think. Again. This sentence is very kind. Kind to you. Because it gives you time. And time is your friend. When you use this sentence, you are saying, I am thinking. I am working. I am not empty. Now, think about your workplace. There is something important to understand. Most people there are not judging your English. They are busy with their own fears, their deadlines, their mistakes, their problems. Often, they are not thinking. His grammar is wrong. They are thinking, I hope I don't make a mistake in my presentation. I hope my boss is satisfied. I hope I don't lose this client. Everyone is afraid of something. Fear is very democratic. It visits everyone. The only difference is, some people hide it better. Let me share another small story. Once I had a student from Korea. She worked in a big company. She told me, in meetings, I never speak, never. I asked her, why? She said, because my English is not good enough. So I asked her something simple. What is your job? She said, I am a senior engineer. I said, so you solve complex problems every day? She said, yes. I said, and you are afraid to say one imperfect sentence. She was quiet. And then she laughed, a small, sad laugh. And she said, when you say it like that, it sounds strange. Yes, it is strange that someone who can design systems, solve equations, manage projects, feels small because of a missing article. Language has a strange power. It can make strong people feel weak, but it can also do the opposite. If you let it, I want you to remember something very practical. At work, communication is not poetry. It is not literature. It is function. Can people understand your message? That is the main question. Not, is it perfect? Not, is it beautiful? Only, is it clear enough? Clarity is more important than correctness. Let me repeat that. Clarity is more important than correctness. Say it with me. Again. When you speak simply, slowly, honestly, you are already doing very well. Let me guide you through a small imagination. Close your eyes for a moment. You are in a meeting. You want to say one sentence. A simple one. I think this plan will take more time. In your mind, you feel nervous. But you speak. Your pronunciation is not perfect. Your grammar is not perfect. But the sentence arrives. People understand. Someone nods. Someone writes a note. And the meeting continues. Nothing bad happens. This is the reality of most mistakes. They pass quietly, without drama, but the courage stays inside you. And next time, it is a little easier. I think this is how confidence is built. not by waiting to be perfect, but by surviving many small imperfections. Let me say something that may surprise you. Fluency does not come from studying. It comes from tolerating discomfort, from speaking when your heart is beating fast, from continuing even when you feel embarrassed, from forgiving yourself quickly, very quickly, because if you keep your mistakes too long in your mind, they become heavy. But if you say, "That was not perfect, but it is okay," they become light, and light things do not stop you from walking. Maybe you have a habit. After every conversation in English, you go back in your mind and you repeat, "I should not have said that. That sentence was wrong. I sounded bad." This habit is very common and very harmful because you are training your brain to associate English with pain. Let me suggest a different habit. After every conversation, ask yourself only one question. Did they understand me? If the answer is yes, then the conversation was a success, not a failure. A success. Now, I want to talk to you about something very gentle. Your accent. Many people are ashamed of their accent. They want to erase it, hide it, remove it. But your accent is not a defect. It is a story. It tells where you come from. It tells that you learned another language. It tells that you made an effort. An accent means, "I am bilingual," or "I am becoming bilingual." That is not something to hide. That is something to respect. Sometimes I hear students say, "I want to sound like a native speaker," and I understand this wish. But I also think, why do you want to erase yourself? Why is your voice not enough? Clear pronunciation is important. Yes. But perfect imitation is not necessary. What matters is, are you understandable? Are you confident enough to continue? Are you present in the conversation? Let me tell you a secret. Many native speakers admire people who use English as a second language because they know how difficult it is. They know it requires discipline, patience, courage. They may not say it, but often they think, "This person is strong." Now, let us come back to you, to your daily life. Tomorrow, or today, you will speak English again. Maybe in a meeting, maybe in an email, maybe in a short conversation. I want you to choose one small intention. Not, "I will speak perfectly," but, "I will speak once, even if I am not ready." Just once. One sentence. One question. One idea. And after you do it, I want you to notice something. Your body, your breath, your heart. And I want you to say, silently, "I did it." Not, "I made a mistake," but, "I did it." Because progress is not measured in correctness. It is measured in courage. Sometimes I think language learning is very similar to life. We wait to be ready, to be confident, to be perfect, before we speak, before we act, before we show ourselves. But readiness often comes after action, not before. You become confident by doing, not by waiting. Let me finish with one last reflection. You are not learning English to impress people. You are learning English to express yourself, to protect your ideas, to share your thoughts, to build your future. Your English does not need to be perfect to do this. It only needs to be alive, used, practiced, forgiven, and trusted. And we continue, because this topic is not finished yet. Fear does not leave after one conversation. It needs many quiet talks, many small reminders, many gentle returns. So let us stay together a little longer. I want to talk about a moment that happens very often at work. A moment after you make a mistake. Not a big one, just a small one. You say, "He go to the meeting yesterday." Instead of, "He went." And immediately you feel it. Inside, a small heat in your face, a small tension in your chest. And your mind says, "They noticed. They think I am bad at English. I should not have spoken." But let me tell you something very honest. Most of the time, people do not notice. And even if they do not care. Because communication is not an exam. It is cooperation. People at work want to finish tasks, solve problems, move forward. They are not collecting your mistakes. They are collecting information. And if they understand you, they are satisfied. Let me share a simple truth. Native speakers make mistakes too. Every day. They choose wrong words. They forget sentences. They correct themselves. But because they are confident, no one calls it a mistake. They call it speaking. When you do the same thing, you call it failure. This is not fair to you. I think one of the biggest problems in language learning is this. We judge ourselves much more strictly than we judge others. When someone else makes a mistake, you think, "It is okay. English is not their first language." When you make a mistake, you think, "I am terrible." This is not logic. This is fear. So let me give you a new sentence to practice. Repeat after me. It's okay to sound human. Again. When you speak, you are not a machine. You are a human being. Humans hesitate. Humans search for words. Humans correct themselves. This is natural. I want to tell you about another student. He worked in sales. Every day, he had to talk to clients in English. And every day, he felt tired. Not from work. From thinking. Thinking before every sentence. Thinking while speaking. Thinking after speaking. He said to me, "My brain never rests." And I understood. Because fear makes language very heavy. So I gave him one simple rule. I said, in every conversation, allow yourself 3 mistakes. 3. Not 0. 3. Because if you expect 0, you will freeze. But if you allow 3, you will relax. You will speak more freely. And something interesting happened. When he allowed mistakes, he made fewer of them, because tension left and clarity came. This is very important. Fear makes you speak worse. Calm makes you speak better. So the goal is not to remove mistakes. The goal is to reduce fear. Let me ask you something. When you speak English at work, what is your biggest fear? Is it being laughed at, being judged, losing respect? Take a moment. Name it. Silently. This fear has a name. And when you name it, it becomes smaller. Often, when we look closely, we see something surprising. We are not afraid of mistakes. We are afraid of losing our value. We think, if my English is bad, maybe I am less professional. Maybe I am less competent. Maybe I am less worthy. This is a very deep fear, and it has nothing to do with grammar. Your value does not come from your English. It comes from your experience, your skills, your work, your character. English is only a bridge, not your identity. Let me say this very clearly. You are not your English level. Repeat after me. I am not my English level. Again. You had a life before English. You had intelligence before English. You had dignity before English. And you still have them now. Sometimes I think learning a foreign language is like becoming a child again. You know many things, but you cannot say them easily. And this is frustrating. Very frustrating. But children are not ashamed of learning. They try. They fall. They try again. Somewhere, as adults, we forget how to be learners. We want to arrive before we travel. But language is a long journey. And every stage has its beauty. Even the stage where you make many mistakes. Because this stage means you are brave enough to try. Let me guide you through a small practice. Imagine tomorrow at work. You will have one conversation in English. Only one. And before you speak, you will say to yourself, I allow myself to be imperfect. Say it with me. Again. Then you speak. And after the conversation, you will not punish yourself. You will not repeat every sentence in your mind. You will only say, I participated, because participation is progress. Silence is stagnation. I want to talk about something else. Feedback. Sometimes at work, someone corrects you. Maybe they say, you mean, or they repeat your sentence correctly. And immediately, you feel small, ashamed, defensive. But let me offer you a different way to see this. Correction is not humiliation. Correction is investment. It means this person cares enough to help you improve. In many cultures, people correct only those they respect. They do not correct those they ignore. So when someone corrects you kindly, you can think, they believe I can grow. And you can say, thank you. Very simply. Not, sorry, my English is bad. But, thank you. That helps. This changes everything. From shame to learning. Before we finish, I want to leave you with one last image. Imagine your English as a small plant. Every time you speak, you water it. Every time you stay silent, it stays dry. The plant does not need perfect water. It only needs regular water. A little every day. And slowly, Without you noticing, it grows. One day, you will speak, and you will realize the fear is still there, but it is quieter, much quieter, and your voice is stronger. This is not a dream. This is how learning works. And we continue quietly, gently, exactly where we are. Because there is something else I want to talk about. Something that many people feel, but rarely say. Sometimes you are not afraid of making mistakes. Sometimes you are afraid of success. You are afraid of what will happen if people finally understand how much you know. Because when people see your real ability, they may expect more from you. More responsibility, more speaking, more visibility. And part of you feels, I am safer if I stay small. This is very human, very understandable, but also very limiting. Let me explain. When you speak less, people think you know less. Not because they are unkind, because they have no evidence. Work life is not fair. It is not about who is smartest. It is often about who is heard. And I say this not to scare you, but to empower you. Because your voice matters, even with mistakes, especially with mistakes. Let me tell you about another moment. I once worked with a woman who spoke very simple English, very basic, short sentences, many errors. But she always spoke, always. In meetings, in discussions, in difficult moments. She was not fluent, but she was visible. And slowly, people trusted her. They saw her commitment, her clarity, her honesty. And one day, she became a team leader. Not because of her English, but because she was present. Language is not only about accuracy, it is about presence. Are you there? Or are you hiding? This is a hard question, but a useful one. Let me ask you something gently. At work, are there moments when you have an opinion, but you decide not to share it? Not because it is wrong, but because your English is not ready. These moments are very important, because your future is built from these small decisions. Speak, or stay silent. Risk, or hide. There is no judgment here, only awareness. Sometimes silence protects us, and sometimes silence limits us. The art is knowing the difference. I want to talk about another very common habit. Apologizing. Many learners apologize too much. They say, sorry for my English. Sorry, I am bad at English. Sorry, my English is terrible. Before they even speak. This habit is dangerous because you are teaching people how to see you. If you say, I am bad, people will believe you. Not because it is true, but because you said it. Let me give you a new habit. Instead of apologizing, prepare. Instead of, sorry, my English is bad, say, let me try to explain. Or, please tell me if I am not clear. This is professional. This is confident. This says, I am working on my English and I respect this conversation. Apologies make you smaller. Preparation makes you stronger. Another important thing, speed. Many learners think, if I speak fast, I sound fluent. So they rush. They hide behind speed. But speed creates mistakes. And mistakes create fear. Let me say something very simple. Slow speech is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of control. When you speak slowly, you choose better words, you breathe better, you think better, and people understand you better. In meetings, slow speakers are often seen as thoughtful, not weak. So give yourself permission to slow down. Repeat after me. I am allowed to speak slowly. Again. Good. Now, I want to talk about one very quiet enemy. Comparison. You look at your colleague. They speak English easily. They joke. They interrupt. They sound confident. And you think, I will never be like that. This thought is very poisonous because you are comparing two very different stories. You do not know how long they studied, how many mistakes they made, how many years they struggled. You only see the result, not the journey. And every journey looks beautiful at the end. Comparison steals your patience. And patience is the most important skill in language learning. Let me give you a small rule. Compare only with your past self, not with others. Ask yourself, am I speaking more than 6 months ago? Am I understanding more than 1 year ago? Am I braver than before? If the answer is yes, you are progressing, even if slowly. And slow progress is still progress. Sometimes I think we are too harsh with ourselves. We expect adult results from child practice. But learning a language takes years, not months. Years. And this is not a failure. This is reality. Let me tell you something encouraging. Most people do not need perfect English at work. They need functional English. Enough to explain, ask, clarify, negotiate, solve problems. Perfection is for exams. Communication is for life. And life accepts imperfection. I want to guide you through one last reflection. Think about the first day you used English at work. Maybe you were very nervous. Maybe your hands were shaking. Maybe you prepared every sentence. And now think about today. Are you a little better? A little calmer? A little faster? If yes, this means you are already changing, even if you do not feel it. Growth is often invisible, until one day you look back and you realize, I am not the same person anymore. Before we end, I want to leave you with one final sentence. Repeat after me. I deserve to be heard, even with mistakes. Again. This sentence is very important because you are not a guest in your workplace. You belong there. Your voice belongs there. Your imperfect English belongs there. And every time you speak, you are not disturbing. You are participating. And now we come to the last part of this long, quiet journey together. Not an ending that closes a door, but an ending that opens a small window. Because after all these words, after all these stories, I know something very simple is true. Tomorrow, you will still feel afraid sometimes. You will still hesitate. You will still make mistakes. And that is not a problem, because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is speaking while fear is still there. Let me talk to you about something very gentle. Trust. Not trust in English. Trust in yourself. When you walk into your workplace, you bring much more than language. You bring your experience, your effort, your history, your values, your patience. English is only one tool in your hands, not your whole worth. Sometimes I think we forget how brave it already is to live and work in another language, to think in one language and speak in another, to make decisions, solve problems, build a career in a language that is not your own. This is not normal. This is extraordinary. But because you live inside it every day, you think it is small. It is not. Let me ask you something very quiet. If a friend came to you and said, "I am afraid to speak English at work. I make many mistakes," what would you say? Would you say, "You are terrible"? No. You would say, "It's okay. You are learning. You are brave. Don't be so hard on yourself." Why is it so easy to be kind to others and so difficult to be kind to yourself? From today, I want you to practice one new skill. Not vocabulary, not grammar, self-respect. When you make a mistake, say, "That is part of learning." When you feel slow, say, "I am thinking carefully." When you feel afraid, say, "I am doing something important." Because speaking a foreign language in real life is not a small thing. It is an act of courage. Every day, I want to leave you with one final image. Imagine yourself 1 year from now. You are at work. You are speaking English. Not perfectly, but more easily. You are calmer. You are less afraid. You are more present. And you look back at yourself today, and you think, "I am glad I did not give up. I am glad I kept speaking. I am glad I trusted myself, even a little." This future version of you is built from very small actions. One sentence, one question, one risk. Today, tomorrow, next week. And slowly, quietly, fear becomes softer, and your voice becomes stronger. Not because you removed all mistakes, but because you stopped letting mistakes decide who you are. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself.